Hey, howdy and a big welcome back to Clem Hawks, folks. I'm Yak, ready to take you through today's NHL free agent rumors, updates, whatever you want to call it at this point, because these are really the dark days of the offseason where little to nothing is happening. You know me, big Oilers fan. Yes, Kyler Yamamoto just signed. Do not have time to talk about that on Dolly TV today. We'll worry about that some other time. But my friends, good day. Because there's talk now, I'm seeing, right, Leafs fans, particularly Hot Take Hockey on YouTube here, starting to dream up that PK Subban scenario to the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I, for one, believe there is only one way this PK Subban drama this summer should end, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But before we get there, if you're new to the channel, folks, this is Clem Hawks. We're grinding away on the NHL, MLB stuff. We really appreciate having you along here with us. We're closing in on 4,000 subscribers now. So take the next 5, 10, whatever it takes me to get through my discussion with you today to consider subscribing to the channel here. But as I said, there's one way I believe this should end. There's only one way this should end. And for the Montreal Canadiens and PK Subban, it would be a reunion. Obviously, PK Subban, what do we know about him right now? The number one thing you need to know about PK Subban right now, as it currently stands this offseason, is he is the highest paid player last season to not have a contract so far this season. So that's what you need to know there. You need to look on the Montreal Canadiens side, $250,000 in cap space remaining or thereabout for the Montreal Canadiens. So they are in a pinch if they want to try and add anyone in particular. In particular. But you look at who they've got signed, and we'll discuss the dynamics of how this all works in a minute. They've got Justin Barron, who figures to be a big part of their defense this season. They've got on right defense David Savard, and on right defense as well, Chris Weidman. That's your right defense in the NHL for the Montreal Canadiens as it currently stands. Down on the farm, there really isn't anyone that stands out, right? Madison Bowie maybe, and that's about as far as you go with guys that on the right side could really be anything of substance on your team this year. Now suddenly you look at the injured reserve and kind of a guy sitting there on Cap Friendly chart of the salary cap breakdown for the Montreal Canadiens, and who's sitting there is Jonathan Drouin. Right, he's sitting there kind of in no man's land. $5.5 million in cap against for the Canadiens in Jonathan Drouin. Whether he stays on the LTIR, that frees up a lot of cap space, and I'm sure you can find a way to have PK Subban join the club for a club-friendly deal, reunite and all that, and really get the big kind of celebration that should cap off PK Subban's legacy as a Montreal Canadien by having Jonathan Drouin on the shelf. But something that my buddy Gillies TV here on Clem Hawks as well did the other day is talking about how bringing in guys might cost you a guy. And that's for the Oilers too, for the Islanders with Nazem Kadri, for really anyone at this point. It's going to cost you someone. And Jonathan Drouin would be the perfect guy for the Canadiens if they're to part ways with anyone. Obviously, expectations have never fully been met in Montreal. Always been wanting more, have the fans out of this guy. And right, for another team, you can hopefully see it's there. He's only 27. There's plenty of potential left. There's plenty of miles left on a guy like Jonathan Drouin. Is he going to be the 40-goal scorer, 100-point guy? Probably not, but you got him for $5.5 million. Heck, you even retain $1 million if you're the Montreal Canadiens to get the deal done, and the other team's getting him for an Evander Kane type deal. Well, suddenly you take the upside and you work with what you got. So that's where I'm looking there. But at the same rate, that's covering that base, right? The salary cap aspect. How do the Canadiens make it work? How do the Canadiens figure out the cap space for, in, out, and against? And that's kind of the deal here. PK Subban, though, last season making $9 million, signing that deal way back in 2014-15 with Marc Bergevin, the then Montreal Canadiens general manager, on August 2nd, 2014. It's kind of crazy to think how long ago we went with this PK Subban deal from 14-15 all the way to 21-22. Think about all the ways the NHL has changed since, everything that happened with Connor McDavid ever since kind of deal, right? That's big time news there. And for PK Subban, he only lasted 2 more years in Montreal after that, and then all of a sudden went over to Nashville, still had some very good seasons, and since then has not really panned out. But I mean, playing on the no-name New Jersey Devils doesn't exactly help, and playing with a team that's going to be exciting this year, especially as Slafkovsky ends up making the club this year in the Montreal Canadiens, could be really fun and really energizing for a guy like PK Subban, right? Could be very good times for the Montreal Canadiens as well. And just the big thing there that I'm looking at, and this is just the reunion angle. This is all I'm looking at, is if we can talk about PK Subban to the Toronto Maple Leafs, because he's from Toronto, whatever you want to say, you got to believe number 1 or number 2, depending where Toronto is Montreal. Yeah, you can say how it ended, all that, but end of the day, a lot of PK Subban's life will always be tied to those years in Montreal. And to send off at 33, right, especially for Subban, if he's trending down the way he is, get him to 36 on a team-friendly deal, and he's probably done anyway, right? You're talking about a guy who's played hockey for years on end, and at 36, if you're slowing down as much as you are, you're probably done, right? This is a guy who's been in the NHL since 2009, 2010. He played 16 games that year, 14 of them being playoff games. And I mean, that's 09-10. Guys, that is, at this point, you're talking about starting this season 13 years ago. That's a long time ago if you're an NHL defenseman that's put up the elite numbers and maintained them for as long as PK Subban did over a 10-year stretch. So, folks, that's really all there is to it, right? Yes, PK Subban and the Montreal Canadiens, I think that's really should be the only option for him, and that should be the only option the Canadiens are looking at adding at this point. And secondarily, that becomes the question of Jonathan Drouin and where he figures into the puzzle and how he fits into making such a deal work, whether it be via trade, whether it be via sitting on the LTIR the whole season. Folks, I'll leave the rest to you. This is Clem Hawks. I'm Yak. I'm going to go get rested up. I am up on out of here.